Alright, I'm back on YouTube and I'm making a historical video this time because I wanted to make one and because I make the videos which I fucking want to make. So this video is about the crisis of the third century AD in the ancient Roman Empire, which is basically a period of time in which the empire nearly collapsed. So I'm going to try and record this whole video in one take and I'll just cut out the bits where I have to stop to think about what I'm saying. So anyways, let's start the video. So the Roman Empire throughout the most of the 2nd century AD was like at the height of its power. So it was like the most powerful it would ever be. But then how the fuck so did it go from in the 2nd century AD being the most powerful to in the 3rd century AD being the on the brink of collapse? So let's start at the beginning. Towards the end of the 1st century and the beginning of the 2nd century, we had and then throughout most of the 2nd century, we had about 5 good emperors in a row, which was quite rare for a lot of imperial, a lot of places where the ruler is decided by birthright. It's quite rare to have so many good rulers in a row. But anyways, the Roman Empire under the second of these emperors, Emperor Trajan, reached like its greatest territorial extent it would ever reach in 117 AD. And then after that, his successor Hadrian got rid of some of the furthest away lands because he couldn't effectively govern them, because they had men on horseback delivering messages and shit. So you can't control fucking Syria and Scotland from Rome that effectively. So he got rid of them, and then he decided, okay, let's start fortifying. So he decided he was going to build walls and castles all over the whole border, such as Hadrian's Wall, or fortresses all along the Danube River, which is what they had to protect against the Picts and the Germanic tribes. So yeah, that was pretty smart what he did, because even today a lot of countries they struggle to govern such huge areas of land. China or Russia comes to mind, but. So he did that, and then after that, from about 120-ish AD, whenever Hadrian came into power, right up until about 180, 190 AD, the empire was actually doing pretty well. They had all these good emperors from, obviously, I think it was Nerva before Trajan, and then a couple other guys, all the way up to Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king. So he was the last good emperor. And so all these emperors, of these 5 emperors, a weird thing was, because none of them had sons, legitimate sons, all of their heirs were decided by adoption, which, I don't know if it's coincidence or not, but that might have potentially had something to do with why they're all quite good, because they weren't born with the mindset that one day all this is going to be mine and no one can do anything to stop it. And this theory is backed up because we look at the final, the guy who ended the string of good emperors, Emperor Commodus. He was the first biological son to become the emperor. He was a biological son of Marcus Aurelius, and he became the emperor. And, at the beginning actually, I'm going to adjust my camera here. At the beginning actually, Emperor Commodus wasn't that bad. But then over time, paranoia and shit led to him doing some pretty dumbass stuff. He pissed off the Senate, which was not something he wanted to do in ancient Rome. So anyways, this Commodus guy, folks, he goes insane. He delegates most of the ruling to his right-hand men. So he has a couple right-hand men, the man Cleander, who he would have, and then when they would fuck up ruling the empire, or something would happen, he would use them as a scapegoat and execute them. But then one time he had to execute someone who he really liked, the guy I mentioned earlier, Cleander, and this kind of sent him insane, and eventually he got assassinated, and that kind of fucked things over because they were like, oh, who's in charge now? So the next year they had, I think it was, after Commodus died, they had 5 emperors in 1 year, which was a bit chaotic and kind of ended the streak of 5 good emperors. So for a while after that, they had a couple good emperors, because the guy who won the chaos in the year of the 5 emperors was called Septimus Severus. He was actually from Africa, but he wasn't African ethnicity. But this guy, he was quite a good he was quite a good commander and quite a good emperor, and his dynasty would rule for a while. But during their time, what they would do is they would basically reduced the power of the Senate and increased the power of the military, and they increased the size and strength of the military, and they had to they paid the soldiers more. So basically, they didn't realize at the time, but they were kind of fucking Rome over and setting it up to be like a military junta. Who the fuck do you pronounce that word? Anyways, yeah, they were setting up to be one of them, which is not really something you want to have in your country. So eventually, this Severan dynasty fucking dies because the final guy, Severus Alexander, he fucked up defending against the Sassanids and the German tribes. The Sassanids were like in Persia, they were Rome's main ops, and they always attacked. They would always try and attack like where Turkey and Syria is today. So they went to. He kind of fucked that up, and then his own soldiers kind of stabbed him and killed him. And then that's generally like when he died is when they usually say the crisis of the 3rd century began. Just in my camera here. Alright, fuck. Might cut this bit out because it's taking too long. So he died in 235 AD, and then for the next roughly 50 years to 285 AD, there would be 30 emperors in the next 50 years, and the empire would generally just be in complete and utter chaos for the majority of it. Because if you do that, that's like one emperor every less than 2 years, which is a bit like, if you look at that, you're like, oh shit, what's happening to them all? And the truth is, almost all of them were dying. And no shit, they were dying, but almost all of them were getting fucking killed. So around this time, they also, of all this political instability, they had the double whammy of getting invaded by the German tribes. So there's like a lot of German tribes, you know, some of them, the names are still words today, like the Vandals, who presumably the word Vandal comes from, presumably the word vandalization comes from what the Vandals did to Rome, which was basically fucking destroy all the shit that they could get their hands on. And the Goths, I don't know how this became this, but somehow it did. And the Goths the Goths and the Vandals and other tribes like the Alemanni were attacking Rome into like France and northern Italy from Germany. So they had to constantly defend against that. And then on top of that, they had the aforementioned Sassanids, who were like a rebranded Parthian empire, who were the Romans like old time ops. They were like kept on attacking Syria, and these guys were actually like quite good at fighting. So it was a tough one for Rome, you know. So in 252 AD, the Roman emperor at the time, I think it was called like Valerian or something, he went over with a big ass army to fuck up the Sassanids and tell them like piss off. But then he got the emperor of like the whole fucking area is now captured by an enemy. Like, it's the first time this has ever happened to a Roman emperor, sorry. And then he died pretty soon afterwards in captivity. So that was like a big blow for Rome. It was pretty humiliating. Like, they lost their commander-in-chief in battle. And then on top of that, they also lost a bunch of land in Syria. From kind of like the middle of Syria right up to like Lebanon and the Mediterranean coast, they lost control of that temporarily to the Sassanids, which was like not something they wanted to be having, you know. So anyways, from after Valerian got killed or got captured and then died, they had a new emperor, and from like shit just started going crazy, you know. There was revolts all across the empire. There was barbarian invasions everywhere. Like, don't get me wrong, the Romans were still smoking the fuck out these barbarians on a regular basis. Like, I'll see if I can find an example. There was a battle somewhere where the Romans had like 60k troops to the barbarians 300k, and they smoked the barbarians. Like, totally. So they were still winning, but there was just so many people invading it all the time. They couldn't be everywhere at once. So, like, slowly shit started to fall apart, and the people were getting pissed off. So, in about 260 AD, the provinces of Gaul, which is like France, and then Britannia, which is like England, split off to form what's now called the Gallic Empire. And then, yeah, these guys left the empire. So it was like a big whole ass civil war as well, going on at the same time as all these fights against the Sassanids and all the revolts and whatnot. And these Gallic Empire people went and then took Spain because the emperor was too busy defending rebellions like closer to home. so he couldn't defend Spain. So the empire is now split in two, and then shit's about to get worse. But like first, it's going to get better, then worse. So over in Syria, remember how the Sassanids took all that land? Well, this absolute G from called Odeonathar or something like that, he just came along and he was just like a nobleman from the city of Palmyra. I don't know how you pronounce it, but that's probably close enough. Anyways, he raised an army. He said to the Sassanids, like, fuck yous, and he took back all the land, went right over to their capital. Didn't take their capital, but he took back all the land and just destroyed them in battle. And so he was like, oh mate, I'm a G. So he was like, oh, I'm the king of kings. But then at the same time, he was still subordinate to the Roman emperor. So he was like still part of Rome, although because Rome couldn't like effectively govern that land, he was basically just a king. And then he just paid lip service to Rome. But then this motherfucker died. And his wife, called Zenobia, was in charge. So Zenobia is important to this story, right? Remember her, because she'll come back later. So whilst all this is going on, the Germanic tribes are still invading somehow, even though they're still getting smoked every single time. Like, they've been fighting the Romans for 300 years. Their last big win was in Teutoburg Forest in like 9 AD. Surely after 300 years of fighting the Romans, they would learn to like up level a little bit, but clearly not. So they're shite. But anyways, this emperor called Claudius comes along, he smokes them and then gets them to go home a little bit for a little while, and then he goes over to Spain, takes back Spain from the Gallic Empire. So this is roughly about 271 AD. But then before he can do anything more, he kind of gets sick and dies from the plague. And I forgot to mention, through this whole time when all this other chaos is going on in the empire, not only is there mass hyperinflation caused by the decreased percentage of silver in the coins, which they had to do to like pay the army because they doubled the size of the army, if you remember. Not only that, but there's like constant plagues, which is like COVID-19, but like when you get it, you actually fucking guaranteed to die, and they have no medicine. So the plagues are fucking everything up. The hyperinflation, the wars, everything's just really fucked up and chaotic at the minute. So, anyways, after Claudius dies, the next emperor that comes along is an absolute G by the name of Aurelian, and this guy's a fucking absolute sick general. So, you know, before he can do anything, because it's 271 AD, he's just become emperor. Just to create things more interesting a little bit. Remember that Zenobia bitch from earlier? Well, she decided that to call her son, who's like 4 years old or so, to call her little baby son the emperor, and she's basically in charge in his stead. So she launches a whole rebellion, and then the empire split into three. So now it looks like this. And now the empire split into three. Aurelian's in charge, and he's got a massive ass task. So first off, he goes off and he's like, right, let's get rid of these Germanic tribes once and for all. So in his like first couple of years, he smoked the Alemanni, the Ithungi, the Sarmatians, the Carpi, the Goths, and the Vandals. I had to read all their names, and I didn't pronounce them right probably, but anyways, he smoked all those German tribes. Then after that, well, just before that, when he was fighting them, he did at one point, like, to make it a little bit more dramatic, he did lose a battle and then let them march on Rome. And then everyone in Rome was panicking, and then at the last minute he swept back in, killed them all. He won the fucking battle, saved Rome, and everybody in Rome was partying. So now everyone loves him. And then, so from now, he takes his big ass army. And remember how that Zenobia bitch was revolting? Well, she's taken over Egypt, and that's where all the bread comes from, on the Nile River. So everyone in Rome kind of like, they ate all the food in their massive celebrations, and now they're starving. So he takes his army and he has to go over to Syria to defeat these Palmyrans, because they come from the city of Palmyra. And he has to go and defeat them. So he goes over, see this woman, he smokes her in about a year, he takes all of the land back and just destroys her. Everyone in Rome loves him even more because all the food's come back again now. So now he's taken over that, and he spared the. So they had the city which they rebelled, and he got to he like took it over, and he was like, "Oh, you guys rebelled, but I forgive you," and he spared them all. Okay, and remember that. So, anyways, after that, he goes over and he has to at one point get rid of like a bunch of land off in like Central Europe because it was kind of pointless defending. But That's not important. It's called like Dacia or something. But anyways, he got rid of that land so he could get more troops. Took all the troops, went off. Remember that green Gallic Empire they had on the other side in France and Britain? Well, he went and he tried to at first be like, oh, rejoin us. And the guy who was in charge was like, no. And he was like, alright, fuck you then. And in the Battle of Chalons, he stomped on them and retook it all in like one battle. So he's taken that all back. And now he's like fully in charge of the Empire again. But this dumbass city, Palmyra, what the fuck you pronounce it, decides now is a good time to rebel again. So he goes over there, destroys them in battle, and then he kills every single person in the city and levels it to the ground. So yeah, it's 275 AD. The Empire's all fixed again, because thanks to this Aurelian guy who's an absolute unit. But then he died. The Empire for a little bit looks like it's going to get fucked up again, but then in 285 AD, thank goodness, this guy called Diocletian comes along and fixes things up, so they are stable for a little bit. He does like establish a new system of government and that, which kind of changes things for a while, but he did what he had to do, and the Empire's fixed now. And generally, when Diocletian got like crowned, that's generally when they say the crisis of the 3rd century ended. And so, with the crisis of the 3rd century over, this video is over too. I'll probably make another video at some point soon. But, yeah, anyways, catch you in a bit.